and they're entering from the waiting room. Yeah, we have quite a few participants, so welcome everyone. We're just kicking off this webinar, which we was really excited to bring to you, also with an incredible panel and yeah, hosting space today. We're in our office together with Marta. My name is Iris. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Renoon. So really excited to welcome you here today. We decided to actually do this virtual panel because that it's part of our Roundtables event. So in November last year, we went through 4 different cities, Milan, Copenhagen, Amsterdam, and Paris. And we basically met more than 100 companies, and we met them, of course, offline in that case. So we actually wanted to bring this also online so that more people could join, could hear some of the findings that we actually also put together through a dossier and a report that we'll able to share today with you. But I'll also very shortly introduce you to our panelists and the overall topic. What emerged is that we're currently in a very new in a new and pivotal moment of the fashion industry. We know that there's compliance and a big compliance coming up, but it's also quite blurry. So when we were looking for a title to really put a name into the experience that we had in November, we thought that this blur of compliance and the opportunities that actually emerged from it was actually the perfect one. So I want to kick off everything by actually giving you a little bit of an introduction to the agenda for today. So again, we're going to deep dive into the report and actually what emerged from this experience that we had throughout those different cities, where companies are and what are the key challenges they're facing, but as well what are the opportunities that they're seeing, and what are the opportunities that talking to different industry experts, some of them you have today here, so you can ask questions at the end and really make that emerge. But what was the Roundtable event? We have a video that we want to show you. All right. Yeah, I think. All right. So again, this is a part of the launch and the really condensing of the experience that we had. Something that I really found interesting in during these events was actually that when we were in those different rooms, no matter the city, actually the type of vibe was quite similar. So there's been both on one side this sense of urgency and the gravity of the issue, and the fact that this issue is now being addressed in a different way. So what we noticed that companies are putting themselves, and also all as throughout as professionals that we're putting ourselves into a different mindset of on one hand really recognizing the difficulty and the challenges and the complexity that this brings, but also seeing it throughout the opportunities. I also want to recognize a few of the partners that we launched this report with, and also the different Roundtables events. So in Milan, we were hosted by Technogym. We also had the Fédération de la Mode Circulaire throughout different so in Paris specifically, and Soho House that was indeed our partner in Copenhagen. I also want to thank, so these are a few, today we actually have a cruise, Michael, Jordan, Stephanie, we also have Kat as a new entry today. So a few of the people that actually joined into our panel experts, but we also had other experts there. that really also supported the creation of this report, where we actually found quite interesting. So a few of the things that emerged was actually seeing the difference between the different cities. So one thing that also struck and was very interesting to me was, on one hand, for example, in Paris, there was indeed like quite of a strong focus on circularity. Of course, we had Fédération de la Mode Circulaire, that was actually one of our key partners, but also throughout the different, ecosystem building, and where we saw that there is the biggest like thriving of interest of brands and also sustainability, CSR teams, but also IT teams, and also looking at what consultancies companies are focusing on. Circularity was a big important topic. In Milan, we saw quite a lot of interest on environmental measurements. Copenhagen, a lot looking into actually the back end of it, so ensuring traceability before looking into the front end. Still quite a lot of interest on communication and looking into new ways to actually utilize compliance to actually go to market with information that currently hasn't been yet shared with the consumer. And finally, in Amsterdam, what we found was more focus on cultural responsibility topics. So looking into societal issues and how do we bring that forward, both on the company side and also on the consumer side, which we'll deep dive into also today. Where we are now and why we're bringing this topic forward. So the big urgency that you can also deep dive into the report has been, on one hand, the preparing the infrastructure, and on the other hand, the fact that this infrastructure needs to be prepared and ready in a very short amount of time. And here, actually, we have a pretty good timeline that actually represents that. And where we are, so this is one of the actual different graphics that that we've sort of compiled together to see where currently also companies are. And also what is, for example, in this case, what is the most significant obstacle in achieving the desired sustainability transition? And it was quite interesting to see, for example, in this case, that a complex supply chain is the key and number one, which we'll be also discussing in a bit. But currently what we are basically seeing mostly is that companies want to really avoid filling out forms. So this has been one of the key issues that we found, that basically there's a key transition that we need to make if we want to avoid the job of sustainability manager and the CSR teams to become filling out information, and at the same time the different interactions that the sustainability team and the key departments that will take care of the legislation and the communication toward the consumer that follows the legislation will have to do, so avoid all of that paperwork and additional admin work that it has become. We don't want this, of course, to become indeed an admin type of task. So we're here today actually because we really want to transcend short-term strategies and find a long-term vision. And who would be better to actually shift into this long-term vision than Eva? Eva has been indeed in the industry for many years. She's been I found always every time that I say also when I started Renoon and I began the journey with Renoon. She's been one of the key leaders in the industry. She's the founder of
I'm just listening to this.
and she has been indeed creating a lot of the key elements that actually created the infrastructure of part of the way we actually discuss about this topic. So I'm very excited, Eva, to have you here. You've been also part of our journey throughout this different cities. How was it for you? And I mean, the main question for you is also, where do you actually see the industry, the way you've observed it during the Roundtable in Copenhagen, specifically where you were with us? And where have you seen it develop in the past 10 years, and where are we going in the next 10 years?
Thank you, Iris. And I don't know why I look orange. Everybody else doesn't look orange, but I do today.
Good lighting.
It's not 10. I think this is such an exciting topic, and I know we only have an hour, and I have a tendency of sort of losing it and just talking, all the time. So I'll try to make it brief. I know that a lot of you guys, and I can't see you, and I don't exactly know who's on our call, but we know some of the businesses at press that signed up. I know that many of you guys are the ones who want to do good and who are stepping into this space with all of the right intentions in place. And I think what I sense when I speak to the industry at the moment out there is that a lot of sustainability leads are, of course, being pressured about the constraints we're in financially, the recession, teams are being cut, and at the same time, an overwhelming amount of legislation coming straight at you. And a lot of them feel that they've been reduced to becoming accountants. So like Iris said, how do we actually take this opportunity, which I really would encourage that it is, with all of the legislation, to actually, make it something that's more easy, more tangible, so that you guys can free up headspace and energy to use your strength in innovation and helping make your business and your product more exciting, which is what sustainability used to be about. Innovation, materials, new solutions, optimizing, effectivizing, and now you're just at the desk trying to do all of the compliance and legislation. The reason I'm so excited about all the legislation, and I think if some of you guys are sick and tired of it, I might be one of the people to blame. There's a number of organizations who over the last 15 years have been working quite intensely on getting more legislation in the space. And it's basically because we need to create a more level playing field. Because even if many of you guys want to do the right thing, and you might have been doing it for many years, there's still at least 50% of the industry that's lacking behind. So we do need legislation to ensure that we lift everyone and that there is a level playing field, and that hopefully we can also come to a place where we can incentivize those who actually do the great work and do good, and punish those who don't. And therefore, we do need the legislation. But I know it's a hurdle right now, and it's overcoming a lot of, new challenges, and that a lot of your team has been reduced, and, so they had space for it. And that's why I fell in love with Renewn and the vision that Iris has, and how technology can be applied to help us, and, how we can make it easier to meet all the demands, but also at the end, create something that might be valuable even for the consumer, because some of this can also be turned into exciting stories. But yeah, so I think this is a critical moment in time. It's going to be a hurdle to get over the first hump, but I foresee a really bright future for our industry as soon as we've implemented all the tools we need.
Yeah. Eva, you've of course from Global Fashion Agenda, you went on to different things, and specifically you've been Chief Global Engagement Officer at Pangaea first, and then you've recently moved into Be Wild. It's a science-based nonprofit engagement campaign, right? That really focuses on brands and helping them really create civil society movement, and really focus on more nature and healthier people. Maybe you want to also tell us a little bit about your new adventure, but also what's really key on your roles right now. It's your view of how consumers fall on all of this, because we tend to keep always like thinking about, and as you just rightfully mentioned, there's a lot to think about on the back end side, but sometimes why should we look at the front end side in the first place, now that we don't know what's going to happen in the back, if we're going to be accountants or not? Why should we look at the front end side, and how do we bring consumers along, or different stakeholders along in all of this?
I think that everybody who tries to sort of build a sustainability budget right nowadays needs to somehow explain to both the CEO, the finance team, but also maybe marketing, why it's worth it. Because I think a lot of sustainability leads are, experiencing currently that things are being cut on that end. And that's why I think if there is a way to create an ROI based on some of all of the efforts that you do in your supply chain, that you actually can show and tell. Because at the end of the day, all of these new legislations and a lot of what you can do applying the right data tools and collecting is actually showing what you've got under the hood. And do you have something good to show, or do you have something that's less good to show? But if you are the ones that has something good to tell, it can become part of your storytelling about your brand. That said, we know that people don't buy fashion to save the world. So when we are in our industry and looking at it, it of course needs to be the right product. So it will always lead with product first. Is the product desirable? Is the price right? Do I get it at the right time? All of the convenience. But it is something still that when it comes down to choosing between two products or choosing between brands that you fall in love with or that you sort of lean towards and connect yourself with, this side of it can also create more storytelling about who you are as a brand. And I think what we've seen in the past is that a lot of this data is very boring, is very boringly presented, and consumers honestly don't care, and they don't have half an hour to read a whole page. But if you can create it into dashboards that are interesting, where they can collect quick information, and it might even be something that they can use, over the dinner table, or justify to the husband why they shopped another piece of clothing, or, and it can become part of your circularity, and you can trace products, and all of a sudden it has more value. So I think at the end of the day, we need to transform also our conversation and relationship with consumer and their consumption patterns. And some of it is about creating more value in the product they buy. And this kind of storytelling and sort of knowing more about the product, how it's made, can be some of those valuable propositions that you can put on your product.
And I really, really like the sentence that we capture in the report, where you say, by shifting our perspective, data collection becomes more than just a reporting tool, but also as a rich source of inspiration for engaging.
Exactly. And I think this is just where you need the sustainability leads to speak to the CMOs. The marketing teams needs to come on board. The storytellers of the business need to be woven into this, because they can take this and turn it into exciting stories. So all of a sudden you have more to share than just the beautiful product.
Yeah. And we have a question for everyone actually joining today's webinar, which I'll launch right now. We currently have a lot of Martas as panelists, so I think I can mute them. Yeah, so please feel free to share your thoughts on how do you see also new legislation impacting your brand. So if you see it positively enhancing your goals as sustainability teams, of course, if you're part of any CSR team, the admin burden, of course, it's a bit of I guess the first interaction, the first reaction that a lot of us could have by looking at the amount of data that needs to be filled in, but also a more strategic pivot and growth opportunity. I see a lot of people are actually looking at it positively, which is a great hint to actually move to Stephanie. So we have Stephanie next. Stephanie, you're here.
I'm here.
Yeah, you're here. So welcome, Stephanie. Stephanie is the founder and CEO of Rooflaunch, a technology that I'm very fond of. You basically bring resale as a service to fashion brands, and you've been doing it now for years, and you've really have built a really, really strong expertise with multiple brands and luxury brands and multi-brand retailers as well. So circularity has been one of the key topics and probably a big opportunity, right, in this conversation, especially also when we were in Paris. Which kind of like legislation do you really think this is sort of impacting, and also the legislation also with Refund that you're currently like looking into, and where do you see the opportunities in this?
So for us, there's really two big legislations. One, everything that is around DPPs, of course, and I'll get into that. And then the extended producer responsibility that puts kind of the onus on brands and retailers to take responsibility over the products that they put on the market. So it's not a matter anymore of just selling items, but also putting in place basically services and facilitating for customers, recycling, resale, take back, and so on. So those are really the two major legislations and regulations. If we look at DPPs, DPPs and resale have overlapping objectives. First, there's a priority of bringing more traceability, more transparency around the fashion industry. Second is extending the product life cycle of items. And then finally, it's driving better and more sustainable behaviors and ways of consuming. But if we go beyond those shared objectives, resale really kind of bridges the gap between compliance and profitability. And that's where it becomes, DPPs become so exciting, and not just a cost center or compliance play. It really is a new way to create a revenue source. So on one hand, DPPs give brands the opportunity to tap into those new revenue streams through services, while also kind of reinforcing the business case for offering resale or take-back programs that will be kind of a requirement for all these brands. So now DPPs impact resale, and resale in turn significantly enhance the use and functionality of DPPs on multiple levels. So maybe the question here is, what are those different areas where those two play off on one another? So maybe I can break it down very quickly for it to be a bit more concrete. The first one is everything that is related to operations. As we know, resale is a very thin margin play, especially when it comes to brand execution, where you want to have control over the quality of the listings, you want to have control over the quality of the products, the condition, and so on. DPP allows us to kind of streamline the whole operational kind of backbone of resale, because we have so much more data and information on the provenance and basically the life cycle or the life journey of the product once it hits the resale market. We also have more pictures, more attributes, and so on, that allows us to kind of simplify the whole operational steps to put a product on sale. The second is actually one that is very, I would say, relevant for more the premium and luxury brands, is the way that they're represented in the secondhand market. Today, if you go on secondhand marketplaces, I'm sure there's many brands that kind of cringe at when they scroll through the pictures of their own products, because their lack of, consistency in how their brand is represented. The products are not ironed, the colors are faded out. So it doesn't give a good first experience of the brand. And DPPs is a way to facilitate consistency across the board of how your products are going to be represented, with what pictures, with what kind of description, with what kind of data, and so on. The third is the education piece. So it will take time, and honestly, I mean, we still have a lot of there's still going to be a few years before all our products are tagged with RFIDs and QR codes. But it is driving a lot of education among the customer around resale, and creating quicker adoption of that behavior. And then finally, if I look at how resale basically is playing off on DPPs, so the other way around, if you look at DPPs today, they are at very preliminary kind of perception is it's a cost center, right? It's expensive to put in place, or can be expensive. Solutions that Renew make it much less and of a hurdle, but still it's a lot of work and reorganization in the way that business is done. With resale and with additional services like repair, and rental, but resale is among the biggest business case. Brands are able to create those new sources of revenue, and pivot to new types of models, where not only they're extending the life cycle of their products, but they're making several sales on one single item. They can also create, they can use resale as powerful tool to drive loyalty, retention, and repeat. And that's where it becomes so exciting. And then finally, the other point that resale brings is that while DPPs allow the scan at the supply chain level, how are you going to collect the data from customers if you don't have ways to engage them?
Exactly.
Because your customers won't just like, receive your product and, oh, I'm so interested in seeing the breakdown of the material. Let me go and scan that product.
Exactly.
So the incentive is pretty clear with resale. At the moment where you receive your product, you can educate them through certificates of ownership and authentication, and later down the line when they're ready, give them visibility on what value they can get when reselling the product, and facilitate the whole resale journey, which then in turn builds a case for them to scan and for you to collect more insights and data on your own customers.
Exactly, because the main question that we also asked ourselves, right, in the Paris panel, Stephanie, was, and it had really emerged also in the conversation, is why should consumers scan a digital product passport? And
Yeah.
are we just wasting ink and printing a QR code into products? And how can we really bring that incentive across for the end consumer to really push those numbers up? And this is, of course, a question that we also ask ourselves every day. How can we support that further? And we actually broke it down at the end into this 3 key steps. So, and 3 key purposes and incentives. So one is we were saying with Eva, the story in the dinner table. So the story of the origin, the products, etc., etc. We also have so many different examples with Renewn of companies, the way they tailor the conversation and how they bring that storytelling across, and then enabling different services, so from loyalty to resale, etc. And the third, which actually today we also all realized is like very, very still little utilized, and we're going to see that it's also a trend that we predict for the new year as brands continue to utilize this new channel, because realistically, digital product passport is a new channel. It's in a new owned channel where you can actually utilize also for activation campaigns and brand engagement. Thank you, Stephanie, as well. And I think we have also an example of Dundalk. We can show it later, or actually also you can go on the website to see it. But we have here a quick example. In the meantime, I'll actually launch our second poll. What we were curious about was also to see from the audience today was what kind of level, let's see, so what kind of level of implementation stage there is in DPP. We actually have a overview of where companies are right now, also in the report throughout the different cities that we went to. I'm seeing some patterns already emerge here, evaluating and learning. It's indeed the biggest stage. A lot of them are still, of course, in testing. And we have quite a few that haven't started yet. So, all right, interesting to see. But indeed, speaking about brand and brand value and what that means, I'm moving into Michael. Michael, you've been a founder, a CEO, you've operated brands, you've invested in brands. And something that I really liked about the conversation that we had in Copenhagen with you is when you mentioned that fashion is about pushing products, right? It's about like really pulling people in. It's about the branding piece and bringing really people into wanting to be part of that lifestyle and that brand. And your experience is also in the different lifestyle brands. So what I was curious is, with the different brands that you've seen, currently there's a huge pull into this legislations and the different requirements that they need to be a part of. And sometimes it's quite hard because it's the legislation, but also is the market. So on one side is the retailer, on the other side is also, fashion weeks, for example, that have hardened new standards to adhere to. What was your experience? And what are your thoughts on that?
Thank you, Iris, and great to be part of this panel again for the second time. So as we spoke also last time, now I've worked in the fashion, lifestyle, and sustainable industry for more than 2 decades. And what I really observed so far is the brands that take the most proactive approach to navigate all these sustainable requirements is the brands that really succeed. Platforms such as Zalando and Revolve, as we also spoke, and even Copenhagen Fashion Week, they're now setting benchmark for sustainability, transparency, and accountability. And special brands that excels understand the meaning of these requirements, and is not just a compliance task, but a core part of the business strategy and even the brand's ethos.
Yeah. Yeah, what we've seen is that indeed there's also a duplication sometimes of the standards that are being requested. So that creates also a lot of sort of challenges, and indeed coming up more with an approach that it advances this request and it makes it easy. You've also, I mean, you've done huge collaborations with like Palm Angels, Moncler, and different companies in the luxury space, but you were on the lifestyle perspective. Is there something that fashion can learn from lifestyle when it comes to experiences with mates and consumer engagement, and where some of these companies are?
Definitely. I think absolutely that fashion has a lot to gain by adapting these consumer-centric and sustainability-focused approach that's seen in the lifestyle industry. And as you say, during my experience with Made, we really emphasized in building a strong sense of community and customer engagement that revolved around the sustainable practices. And especially with the high fashion collaboration that we did with Palm Angels and Moncler really showed how merging sustainability with aspirational design at this point can really create a powerful narrative that appeals to both eco-centers and a style-focused audience.
Yeah. Quite interesting. And we actually have from the results of the poll is that 36% of companies, well, the majority is still testing or evaluating learning or hasn't started yet. So actually, as we mentioned before, what also emerges from this is that pulling in the marketing and the branding and the creative side of the company, it could be quite of an interesting unlock.
Exactly.
Yeah, we have a quite interesting space in this, because when it comes to this, we talked indeed about marketing and the part on the branding side. It could be interesting. So in this case, I just launched a new question also for the audience on where is the most significant obstacle in achieving sustainability achieving this transition. So within the company, is it the finance department? Is it the operational limitations? Yeah, the consumer mindset and behavior. So in this case, it's really also tackling what we just mentioned with Michael, or the technological limitations. So, I mean, in this case, externally, a lot of technologies are available. It's mostly the implementation and the scale of it. And we seem to land with the answers on complex supply chains. Is that a surprise for you, Jordan?
Yeah,
Jordan?
I think that the more complex supply chains are becoming a normal thing nowadays. That's really what attracted me to DPP. Was it's almost like a shortcut to just understanding where you are with supply chain in general, because you map it all out, you put it all together, and you can see it. This is something because when you get so focused on creating products, which development, production, creative teams are doing, you get so disconnected from how it all comes together in the final product. And so oftentimes the creative process might start with like, oh, I have an idea, let's make it happen. It gets all the way to a final product, and then the production's then working their way backwards to then figure out where everything's at, how did it happen. And so I feel like DPP is really a tool to help connect not just the supply chain, but also interworking within the teams. We've said it many times on this call too, like the pulling marketing together to be able to do better storytelling, being able to pull production in to be able to manage, be able to create a better product. And as we make the supply chain less complex, you're able to focus in on making those products better, because you're not so distracted, or you're not You're not waiting for something to be shipped halfway across the world. And this is really an important thing with creatives because, like they can then focus on being creative versus having to worry about, hey, you have to pick a different button because that button's coming from some different country and it got locked up in customs. And this is the important part of DPP. And your customers are going to start to understand that because it'll become no different than nutritional facts at the grocery store. It's going to become a standard. As Eva mentioned, this is going to be something that's going to become the new capability to understanding quality when it comes to products.
Yeah. And Jordan, you have a very specific knowledge on this because, of course, you've built boys' jeans from scratch. You've worked at Reformation in the past. So in overall denim, textile, really building with designers and the designs, and also on the other side with supply chain and all the different manufacturers, which also you've been working on quite a lot. What is the biggest thing that as companies and on brand side they're missing when speaking and implementing can be programs or technologies that speak to suppliers? Because some of the biggest, questions and issues that we get asked a lot as well with Renewne is, yes, but my suppliers are not answering. They won't, upload the data and the information that we're asking them to upload and share. What is the biggest mismatch that is currently happening?
You can't have delays with obviously your factories being hesitant on adapting new technology, but really, if anything, it actually bonds you closer to your supply chain, your factories being able to build this together. And that's what's really important, because oftentimes brands will treat factories as just a producer. Do this, do what I say, and do it. And if it's not done right, you're going to get yelled at. And it's not really a healthy relationship. And as you build a DPP, you actually connect that deeper relationship with your factory to where you start to actually understand and harvest a better communication tactic. Because this is also something too, we're trying to take a complex supply chain and then be able to communicate it to your customers. You're also doing the same thing with your own supply chain and your own company. And this is where you can bond between not just the factory, but your, say designers with production. They get more involved because now you have supply chain with the DPP trying to help guide the designers on where to produce products and how to do it so that you can have the best and the least amount of carbon emissions when you're producing products.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things to rethink about as well in the relationships, which can be contractual, but also relationship based in terms of supplier management, which right now sometimes is limited to, I need this information from you, I need this certificate from you, how can I get it, versus rethinking the way this can be structured. And what I also really liked, it was a beautiful quote that we gathered from Andrea Rosso, is that we need to start shorten the distance between also the creative process. So we're not just talking about, the sustainability team, the CSR team, or ops and supply chain and sourcing, but also the creative, the whole overall creative team, that process that you were just mentioning, Jordan. And currently these two aspects are quite disconnected from each other, which is indeed the reality for a lot of companies. Moving on to Kat. Kat is the founder and currently the Chief Vision Officer at Copenhagen Cartel. Cartel was actually one of the first brands to work with Renewne. And actually today we have a quote of one of the other brands that actually started together with you. They do very different products that Cartel, but I wanted to pull up this quote because it's actually funny that two different, consumer-based even, would actually, have a background of founders that have a similar vision. If you, of course, adhere to this vision, but what Alessandro, he's the founder of Arnit Studios, said is that for him, when implementing DPP early on with the brand, and transparency initiatives wasn't about, just seeing the change. It was about like feeling the opportunity from the start. So for him, he mentioned that, and a lot of the things that also he implemented, and because also with you, some of the early customers also really meant co-creation together. That actually, yeah, we didn't wait for legislation 2 years ago, but it started implementation right away, and that sort of started ending up where legislation is now coming. Do you agree with that, Kat?
I completely agree, and great to be here, Iris. Thank you for having me. But I completely agree. So for me and Cartel, it was never about laws or legislations. It was the foundation of why we existed. So randomly, I actually met you. I met a friend of yours when I was doing a keynote in Amsterdam, and she, after hearing my kind of story about Cartel, she was like, "You need to meet my friend." And she introduced us, and you told me about Renew, and I was in love from the very first minute. And I thought to myself, this is exactly what I've been looking for, because I found it very difficult as a very small company to communicate all the good initiatives that we were doing, because I also saw many bigger companies with much more resource communicating kind of the same stuff, even though I knew that we were doing things very differently, and maybe also probably also way better. So when I got the opportunity to look into the technology, I immediately just thought, okay, we need it, because I actually felt it was such an empowerment as a small brand to be able just to show it, not tell it, because we didn't have the biggest resource to, blast our message or communication out. So I just felt like it was very empowering to have that tool to showcase everything we were doing, and the consumer, I know, is not stupid. Of course, if they see the data and if they see, the facts, I kind of, in my visionary world, definitely believe that they would choose, the right choice. So for us, Renew has been kind of like a lifesaver in being able to, merge our visions with our actions as a small consumer-driven company.
Yeah. I guess it would be interesting because for you it was really an initiative that came as, visionary and founder of the brand. Kat, where do you think, and I'll also launch the question to everyone here today with us, of where do you actually think is the departments that should prioritize this topic within the company? Is it, I mean, here for everyone, in the question we've added as options, product development and design, supply chain logistics, operations and manufacturing, corporate strategy and vision, marketing and branding, or legal teams.
Can you choose everyone? No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, that would be it. But realistically, we know that for many companies, also looking at different sizes, that's not an option, right?
But I do think that it is. It's just a matter also, as Eva mentioned, it's a matter of how it is presented. So as you know, Iris, I sold my company to a big retail here in Denmark called Magasin du Nord last year. And they are a huge company where you would think that, initiatives like the DDP is in maybe communication, marketing, or whatever. But the very, very most important thing that we agreed upon the sale was that everything in regards to sustainability, traceability, responsibility was in the strategy. Because if it's not in the strategy, it's going to be difficult for everyone to feel it and then live it and execute it. So for me, I actually think it's a bit of a scam if it's something that only lives in one department, because it needs to be everyone needs to understand what the company is doing and why we're doing it. So that's definitely my push, and I got Magasin on board in it. So and I also got surprised on what level in their management they actually agree on these initiatives, because it is part of a strategy, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think also here we have a quite aligned vision some participants, with corporate strategy and vision being at the top of the list.
Yay.
Yeah, and which of course also that's where we're seeing, and then it's of course has a drill down effect, as you said. Everything else then falls into, and then of course if you have the vision within the company to actually drive this, it's of course easier for everyone. All right. So we actually leave a few minutes for any questions and answers, and actually thoughts that also any of you want to share. Just feel free to use the chat. I think we have here in the Q&A the possibility to look at questions if there is any, or yeah, any thoughts from the panelists. Eva, I know you had a lot of things that you wanted to say, so I hope you had enough time to address them. I know it was a lot also throughout the different roundtables, and during the event also what was really key for us was actually talk to a lot of people and get into those one-on-one conversations, with also a lot of the topics that maybe from talking broadly didn't fully emerge. And what was key also for us was to actually look at really practical examples of all of this, which will of course like keep on following up as soon as also the market gets with and also with us we can share more examples of live live brands that are currently launching different things, to keep all of this conversation happening. I don't think we have any current burning question, right? So I think we can actually close this session here. It's also 6:20 on a Monday evening. And actually, thank you everyone for joining this session today. Again, we are very excited to launch this report because it's really a key conglomerate, adding into all the different conversations that we had until now. I think we have a raised hand. Oh, actually, we have a lot. We actually have Alessandra. Alessandra, I just enabled you to speak. We have quite a few raised hands actually. Let me see. Or Crystal. Well, I'll allow actually everyone to talk if you want to. Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I think that's not possible probably with this setup. So right, so if anybody has, oh yeah, okay, we have here. Yeah, so actually here we have a really good question, so we can actually close off with that. So Marta has a specific question on elaborating, for example, on how the smaller businesses can actually really take immediate steps and strategies for smaller brands to navigate and capitalize on these opportunities effectively. And Marta, this question actually also was raised quite a lot, and also we really go a bit more in depth on the report as well, because some of the questions that also emerged was also the possibility to manage this as a smaller brand, also in terms of investment, etc. Because of course with larger companies, what a lot of people that also joined our roundtables were questioning is maybe quote unquote financially easier, which of course it never is on a business setting and on different like company levels, of course. But how is also the SME market going to play with all of this? And again, I want to answer this quickly, but also I will let Kat, because I think she's the here the kind of a real example of how a smaller brand, I mean, now you're part of a bigger company, but first you were a small brand that actually started this project while being small. Of course, for you, it was part of also your vision and the way that the company was set up. But Renoon was really started also with the idea of really creating a software technology that was as easy to use for anyone without training or without having like a specialized resource in your team to be able to operate it. So that's actually quite key, especially as a smaller company. If you want to kick off and capitalize on this, you have to have a tool that you can work, anyone in the team can work with, first of all. And that is easy. It can actually be launched also to the consumer in a way that becomes easy for the consumer to interact. So both the design piece of it is fundamental. So you just don't launch something and go transparent towards the market just because you have to, because of compliance, but you actually really think about what the consumer wants to read and interact. And I think there was a lot of inputs from the panel as well on this. Kat, do you want to add anything to this? Oh, yeah, you can.
I was muted. But I would just say that the reason why we also chose Renew was I saw a lot of different kinds of tools in my search. And for me, it was just, as you said, Iris, so easy for me to navigate. Also, at that time, I kind of navigated the whole company. So I didn't have much time dedicated. So I would say the overall aesthetic, but also the what you call the front end and the back end was just, super easy. And if I can do it, I'm not a developer or a tech genius or anything. I feel like anyone can do it, but it was also the front end, like how it showed to the consumer, because I've seen a lot of different modules which were full of great information. But as a consumer, you probably have their attention for like 2 seconds when they're on your website. And I felt like the way it was set up, it was very easy for the consumer to kind of get an overview of what is up and down on this product. And I kind of also tested it out. I took screenshots, brought it out when I did presentations. And I felt like overall, it was just a very great kind of aesthetic and design that was also easy. So for me, it at least, it was a plug and play solution. And I think that's also a big advantage of the technology at Renew.
Yeah, sounds good. And the further questions also that we have from Christelle, you can actually find everything that we showed and also the visuals that you've seen actually throughout this webinar. You'll see everything within the report. So you can scan it here to access it. And we'll probably be also sending it out towards your email this week as well. Yeah, sounds good. So thank you everyone actually for joining here today. We've been really excited to have you here. Also thank you everyone, Eva, Stephanie, Kat, Jordan, Michael for being here with us today. It's also been really nice to go again around everything that we've been able to see in those different cities, and also bring people that maybe were there or weren't there along with us. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Iris.
For having us.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.